la Constitución impuesta en la República. La Constitución cubana hace ese sistema de partido único comunista, con el partido único comunista como el rector de la sociedad, un sistema irrevocable que no se puede cambiar nunca. Eso no es solamente una aberración, eso es una imposición al pueblo cubano, y eso es una sentencia que los cubanos jamás decidieron tener. Por eso es pertinente y es necesario que si los Estados miembros de Naciones Unidas van realmente a ponerse de parte del pueblo cubano, comiencen por apoyar el derecho a decidir de ese pueblo y no el derecho del dictador a designar un heredero u otro. What I'm saying is that after all this worsening of the conditions of the human rights in Cuba, after the rising of the repression against the human rights defenders, against the journalists, against the independent artists, the real root of the problem is that the Cuban people have been excluded for all the processes. The real root of the problem is that the Cuban people has no chance to participate in the decisions that directly affect their life. The real challenge is to challenge the system. That's why if the United States members want to help the Cuban people, they have to be ready to push in the direction that should be taken, and that direction is the direction of supporting the Cuban people in their right to change the system. We are promoting an initiative that is called Cuba Decide, and it is claiming exactly for that right. The Cuban Constitution sentenced the Cuban people and all the generations to live under a system in which the unique single communist party is going to be the rector of the society and the state forever and ever. This is an aberration of the law. This is an imposition that the Cuban people never decided. We never choose to live under the Communist Party forever and ever, and we have the right to be consulted. And if the member states of United Nations want to do something for the Cuban people, they have to be ready to support a change in the system. And that change has to be with the participation of the Cuban people. That's why Cuba Decide promotes the holding of a plebiscite specifically on that issue, the holding of a plebiscite to change the system and be able to start a real transition process. A transition process that is not going to start because Raúl Castro changed the name of the president of the Council of State and Ministers, a transition process that is going to start in the moment that the Cuban people can be part of the process. So that our recommendations recommendations that we dare to make, even when we know about all the complices that the Cuban regime has, even when we know about all the efforts to try to hide the existence of alternative voices among the Cuban society, we also know that they are friends of the democracy among United Nations. We also know that they are Democrats that are worried for the future of the democracy in Cuba, in the region, and in the world. So that we dare to ask them to pressure the Cuban regime to stop the repression, to liberate the political prisoners, to guarantee freedom of expression, of manifestation, of press. But we know that all these things can be only guaranteed in the moment that we can change the system. So that we ask to the member states of the United Nations for them to support the right to decide of the Cuban people, for them to support a change in the system to actually could go in the direction of a real transition process. After 60 years of dictatorship, the UN member states has have also a responsibility for the silence on the suffering of the Cuban people, have also a responsibility for the spread of the non-democratic ideas that the secret police of the Cuban regime have done in the Latin American region and beyond. So they have also the responsibility to stop this threat, to help the Cuban people, and to finally take sides with the Cuban citizenry. Después de 60 años en los cuales el pueblo cubano ha sufrido la exclusión, ha sufrido el silencio por parte de muchos en la comunidad internacional, los Estados miembros de Naciones Unidas, todos, no solamente las dictaduras cómplices del régimen cubano, todos los Estados miembros de las Naciones Unidas tienen una responsabilidad por el sufrimiento del pueblo cubano, por el silencio sobre el sufrimiento del pueblo cubano, tienen una responsabilidad por la expansión de las ideas antidemocráticas que la seguridad del Estado del régimen cubano ha ayudado a llevar a otros países de la región, por la represión que el régimen cubano ha coordinado también en otros países de la región, y por tanto tienen una responsabilidad para parar la amenaza que el régimen cubano, no Cuba, el régimen castrista, la amenaza que el régimen castrista significa para el resto de la región. Para hacerlo, esperamos que sean lo suficientemente valientes como para apoyar un cambio de sistema en Cuba. Ya es hora de hablar claro y de apoyar un cambio de sistema en Cuba, y hacerlo apoyando el derecho que tenemos todos los ciudadanos cubanos, en tanto nación cubana, de definir el sistema político de nuestro país. Ojalá sean al menos las democracias de Naciones Unidas lo suficientemente valientes como para ponerse de parte del pueblo cubano. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Rosa Maria. What we'll do now is we'll have a few questions. I have a question that I want to pose for the panel, and then we'll open the floor for any questions, and then we'll end with closing statements that anyone may want to make. So, Rosa Maria, I would like to ask you actually two questions, and afterwards the rest of the panel is welcome to comment as well. So you talked about your movement and the need for the Cuban people to actually have their own say. They never voted for the Communist Party. But a month ago, I was reading major headlines, and I saw headlines about a new president who was chosen. Actually, I saw that he got 99.83% of the assembly, I think 600 or so deputies vote for him, which I noted on the internet that it was an astonishing vote to get 99.83% of any election, and he actually beat by 0.01% the world record set in 2007 by Bashar al-Assad, when there was a referendum of millions of people and he got 99.82%. So it was quite amazing that Miguel Diaz-Canel broke that world record. So, it raises the question, because people saw the headline, it seemed like someone new, there's a change. So is there something new in this new president? Does it show a change of direction? How was he chosen? I mentioned this vote that I didn't really understand exactly how it worked. Were there several candidates? Were there elections? Who is this new president? So that's sort of my first question. And my second question is something from January. You mentioned you were in Europe, and there was a tweet by Carl Bildt, who's the former head of Sweden, and he usually is not critical of the EU, and here he had a picture, and I'll just show everyone. It's a picture of Federica Mogherini, the High Commissioner for Foreign Affairs of the EU, and she has a big smile. This is in January, when she goes to visit Cuban leaders. What is the attitude of Federica Mogherini to Cuba? Does she have the right attitude? Does the EU have the right attitude? What does this picture say? Is it just a picture, or does it say something more that's problematic?
Yes, thank you so much for both questions. Are very very to the point in this moment. There is a new president of the Council of Ministers and the Council of State in Cuba that has been imposed by the Castro family, and I can tell you about the process, because we as Cuba Decide, as citizen platform, we start a campaign previous to the moment of the votations, are not elections, but prior to the moment in which the Cubans went to the electoral colleges, we made a campaign saying to the Cuban people, don't go to vote. And if you vote, nullify your ballot.
Which vote was this?
That was the vote to choose or to actually mark the ballot.
So there's no choice.
Exactly. For the candidates to the National Assembly. It's important to say that there were 605 candidates for 605 positions.
So one candidate for each?
That's a single candidate system, is the totalitarian communist style. And those candidates, according with electoral law, are designated by organizations which are all loyal to the Cuban regime. And loyal is a way to say are all owned by the Cuban regime. So basically, the Cuban regime put the candidates, and it put one candidate for each position. To be a candidate is already to be a member of the General Assembly, and that's how they implement elections in Cuba. But anyway, we made the exercise of going to the electoral colleges and try to see how many Cubans dare not to go to vote or nullify their ballots. And we documented more than the 37% percentage of the Cubans that either didn't go to vote